When I was younger and still getting into anime, there was a certain genre that you would see a lot, even in the early days, that being the harem. I think the first real harem anime I watched or was really aware of back then was Love Hina, a story of a young man who goes to live in his grandmother's hotel, only to discover that it's actually a female-only dormitory, full of all sorts of different girls with unique and marketable looks and personalities. This would also be one of the very early shows to introduce me to the concept of fan service, which you can imagine was a real game changer for a young nerd with very little access to the internet. Parental controls back in the day were no joke. As I got more and more ingrained in anime, I would start to notice this trope coming up more and more, even in shows that weren't specifically harem anime. Like Vandrin, one of the first anime I remember watching weekly on TV outside of Toonami, and a series I hope to cover someday on the channel. And of course, there was the so-called reverse harems, involving one girl and multiple guys, like Ouran High School Host Club and Fruits Basket. But it wasn't until later, a little after high school, that I would discover more and more another subset of this poking through, something that really opened my eyes when I first saw a little show called Toradora. Toradora was a slice-of-life/romance anime that was based on a light novel of the same name, which would originally be published in 2006, although it wouldn't be licensed in America until 2018. But that's mostly because very few, if any, light novels would be published until very recently. The anime and manga, however, would be released earlier, with the DVDs first coming only a few years after the anime debuted in Japan in 2010, and the manga releasing around the same time and still ongoing. The story of Toradora revolves two high schoolers, Ryuji and Taiga, two students who have a similar reputation at the school as scary and intimidating. Ryuji due to his scary-looking face, and Taiga because of her bad attitude, receiving the nickname of the Palm-Top Tiger on account of her small size and furious anger. But the two do have more in common than just bad reputations. They also both have hopeless crushes that they have difficulties expressing. For Ryuji, it's Minori, a cheerful girl and captain of her girls' softball team, who just so happens to be Taiga's best friend. And for Taiga, it's Yusaku, vice president of the student council and best friends of Ryuji. When the two discover that they just so happen to have crushes with each other's friends, they decide to help each other hook up with their respective friends. What follows is a series of wacky situations and romantic misunderstandings that draws the two closer together. Taiga turns out to be in need of more help than could be imagined, living on her own filth at home and barely able to even cook for herself, while Ryuji, despite his scary face, is actually a responsible person, taking care of his mother, who works nights at a hostess bar and is always drunk. The two ended up being neighbors the whole time, and Ryuji starts to help her in her everyday life, since Taiga lives on her own, cleaning up her place and preparing her food. Over time, the two start to become closer and closer friends, as well as developing feelings for each other, Taiga being the first to really experience and express it. It really first coming out in a scene of Ryuji almost drowning in the school pool. Ryuji being a little more dense, at least in the anime, takes a bit longer to catch on. But eventually, the two get more in sync, and by the end, become a real, actual couple. Now, not to say that this was the first time this has ever happened in an anime like this. I'm just going off of my own personal experience, but this was the first time I had experienced a romance like this. Usually you would mostly see harem anime that wouldn't really give you a definitive outcome because the anime didn't fully adapt the manga, or the manga just copying out in some way. This, what I was seeing, was just a story of two people just getting together and falling in love, and it actually sticking. As I get older, I start to appreciate and notice this coming up more and more, poking through the standard harem anime. I don't want to make it seem like I'm against harem anime in any way, however. There are some really good examples of it. A show like Quintessential Quintuplets, however, is a great little concept that combines the childhood promise trope you see in some harem, but instead of not being able to remember who he made the promise to, it was made more difficult by the fact that the girl he made the promise to was one of 5 identical siblings. The anime was nice because it actually eventually had a definitive answer, which resulted in the two getting married. although it brings up a whole host of implications by the end, since it was clear that all the sisters were in love with them, and it feels like the other girls may be hung up on him and never move on, but it's best not to think about stuff like that. Of course, such harems can start well with an interesting gimmick, but end up with the protag picking the worst girl and ruining the whole thing. I mean, seriously, Raku, how could you not pick Kosakai? She is clearly the best girl. Anyway, even today I'm a fan of certain harems, like the meme hit 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You, a story of a boy who had previously been rejected by 100 girls, but is later revealed to him by the god of love that this was due to an error, and he's destined to have 100 girlfriends. The twist is, if he doesn't return these feelings for any of them, they will die. What results is a parade of different girls who fall into every conceivable trope and taste, who all meet the boy, fall for the boy, and become his girlfriend. You could call this a parody of harem shows, but it's really just taking it to its logical extreme, and giving a wide audience everything it could ever want. It doesn't take itself seriously, and it knows exactly what it is. Something I can't really say for another viral hit called Rent a Girlfriend, a story of a boy falling in love with a girl who gets paid to pretend to go on dates with people. A concept that may have worked if it wasn't still ongoing, with over 300 chapters. For reference, it's close to surpassing Dragon Ball Z in chapter count, and is close to catching up to My Hero Academia. These are numbers that you would expect from a battle shonen. But it does sell a lot of merch. And who could forget the best kind of anime made to squeeze weebs out of every cent, the gacha game. My current favorites at the moment are Fate Grand Order and Blue Archive. There's just something about a 2D anime girl calling me master or sensei, and then sending her off to battle that just really does it for me. And who could forget my favorite harem of all time, Goblin Slayer. That's right, Goblin Slayer is a harem. That dude has almost every girl on the show throwing himself at him, but he just has to kill every single goblin in the world, so he can't be bothered. It's a classic harem plot, and I will fight anyone who says otherwise. But I have been finding myself watching more and more shows that are doing more focused love stories. Some that might have some triangles or misunderstandings, but still seem to have a main goal in mind, and usually lead to the two getting together. One of my favorites at the moment is Tomo-chan is a Girl, the story of Tomo-chan, a tomboy who desperately wants to get noticed by her dense as hell childhood friend. Helping her are her friends Mizusu, a sadistic girl who turns out to have actually dated Tomo's crush for a while when they were younger, and Carol, a wealthy exchange student, but a bit of an airhead. Usually in anime like this, a male protag will usually be a bit dense to the feelings of a female love interest, but with this, you get to see it more from the girl's point of view, as she's the main focus. I would highly recommend this manga and anime, as it combines funny slice-of-life situations, and of course the fan service that comes with seeing a tomboy trying to woo someone. Plus, it's just so dang wholesome. Another surprisingly wholesome one is The Dangers in My Heart. When I first started watching this show, it seemed like it was pitched as a kid with a bit of a psychotic streak falling in love with the school's idol. But it doesn't really play with that concept too much. The main boy, Kyotaro, first sees the love interest An and pictures her corpse in a positive light. And while he is a bit of a loner and does read books about murder, it's not something that shows up too much. It turns more into just a story about a shy boy who starts to open up to a girl normally out of his league, when the two end up crossing paths in the library, where he reads and where she takes a break to eat snacks. This is a great school drama that has the shy kid opening up to not just the main girl, but also starts to become part of the wider society, getting to know and friendly with more and more of An's normal friends, even if he finds them a bit annoying at first. In the same vein is My Dress-Up Darling, an extremely cute manga about a guy and a girl who meet over dressmaking. Gojo, a social outcast who has anxiety about interacting with people because of an incident from his past, spends his days honing his craft of making Hina dolls, which has made him a pretty good dressmaker. Which is great news for Marin, an obsessed fan of various anime and games who dreams of doing cosplay. but is just not too good at making the actual designs. The two team up to make outfits for her to cosplay, but Marin finds out very early that she's absolutely in love with Gojo, who clearly has a thing for her, but due to his social anxiety, keeps to himself for the most part, but is also more focused on his dream at times. This is another example that as the manga goes on, Gojo is introduced to more and more people, as he comes more and more out of his shell, and he learns not only that he's worthy of love, but that despite being interested in something that many may find not meant for a guy, his talents can still be appreciated and even celebrated by those around him. Another one of my favorites that I don't think is as popular, but is at a rare camp where the endgame is not the end of the series, is Komi Can't Communicate, a story of a girl who has major communication issues and is unable to speak above a whisper, communicating mostly via notepad. Despite this, she is still seen as the school idol due to her princess-like looks and mysterious aura. However, despite being surrounded by adoring fans, she's still very lonely and is not able to make any real connections. But one day, while practicing in class, her classmate Tadano walks in on her by accident, and the two strike up a friendship, where Tadano promises to help her communicate better, with a goal of befriending 100 people. An extremely cute coming-of-age romantic comedy that, while is also long, it never feels like it drags, because it has such a wide cast of characters beyond Komi and Tadano. To the point some chapters will barely be focused on them. What's great about this, and not to spoil too much, is that it's a very rare example, I have seen at least, of a romance having a triangle, gets resolved, and we focus on the loser getting on with their life and growing more as a person. I cannot recommend this manga more, and pray that it gets another season of the anime, and that the anime is released in home video here in the West. But there's also many more examples of this. Uzaki-chan wants to hang out about two college students who grow closer because of the girl, Uzaki's constant bullying and annoyance. Please don't bully me, Miss Nagatoro, about a fetish manga that evolved into an impossibly wholesome story of a bully turned to almost lover, any day now. Hitomi-chan was shy with strangers, another girl dealing with shyness, and having the added benefit of having shark teeth and abs. This one does not have an anime yet, but I can't imagine it not getting one someday. And of course, there's many more examples of this. I just got recommended Masian Ikoku, a lesser-known manga from the creator of Ranma and Inuyasha, Runiko Takahashi. There are so many out there who complain about harem shows and the over-reliance on fan service, not seeming to understand the point of these shows. And I want to reiterate that this is not what this is about. I love harem shows as much as these more focused shows, but the focused ones I like a little bit more since I prefer now to see more real complete couples. But I just wanted to highlight some of my favorites, and I also want to know what you guys think. If you have a favorite show or just wanted to discuss something you saw in the video, leave a comment below, and be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for even more content to come. This has been The One Nerd, and you guys are going to do it. I believe in you.